Hi, this is my first YouTube video ever, so please bear with me and please be nice to me. I've always wanted to do this, but I'm still low-key embarrassed about doing it. So again, bear with me and be nice. My name's Hannah. I'm an indie author. I've written a book called The First Grimoire, which is available on Amazon. Sort of a contemporary fantasy. But I wanted to make this channel just because I'm really bored with my life. And also I still make book talk videos on TikTok, but I kind of prefer more of a long form style of video, and I prefer watching YouTube videos than watching TikToks. So I wanted to throw my hat into talking about books on YouTube rather than on TikTok. I'll still do TikTok, but I just want to see how this goes. Also, just to preface, I currently have COVID, so if I sound a bit congested, that's why. I don't normally sound like this, just FYI. So it's been a bit of a strange reading year for me. I mainly read fantasy, but lately I found myself reading a lot more romance, so there's a few romance books that have made the list. Also, I just haven't found a good in saying that, I have a few fantasy books on this list, but I haven't found a good fantasy series that sort of pulled me back into the genre. I haven't found that yet. I'm still looking for it. Give some recommendations in the comments, please. But I thought it was a good idea to have my first YouTube video be a wrap-up of my favourite books, particularly because it's the end of the year. Happy New Year. It will be, by the time this goes up, it will be the new year. I'm filming on Christmas Eve. But nevertheless, let's get started on my favourite books this year. The first book I wanted to talk about is actually a series, so it's the Addicted / Calloway Sisters series by Krista and Becca Ritchie. This has been the only series of books I've managed to finish this year. There's about 10 in the series, I believe. And what I will say about them, while they were my favourite, I really wish I knew about the trigger warnings before. I didn't really know that much going into it, but I'm still glad that I've read it. But I do recommend, before you read it or you're thinking about it, to look up the trigger warnings, because this book deals with addiction and mental health and all that, so I definitely recommend looking up everything. Without giving too much of the book away, the Addicted series follows Lily Calloway and Lauren Hale, who are in a fake sort of relationship to hide their addictions. I believe Lily has a sex addiction and Lo has an alcohol addiction, so they're using their fake relationship to hide the fact that they're addicted. And it also follows Lily's sister Daisy and Rose and their relationships as well. To set the sort of setting of it, they're from a really rich family, so there's a lot of media surrounding them. They're sort of reality stars, if that makes sense. Like, think of the Kardashians. So the stakes are really high for them to make sure their addictions and everything are like under the rug. And it's basically dealing with that and sort of overcoming their addictions as well, while also being a family. So one thing this book does really well is sort of portray the relationship of sisters. Their relationships just felt really real and raw to me. And yeah, that's probably one of the main reasons why I liked it so much. It had a lot of, like, despite being really heavy at times, it's got a lot of like light-hearted moments, and it's sort of about found family rather than the family you're born with. I definitely recommend reading it in order. So the first book, I believe, is Addicted to You, then you have to read Ricochet, and then Addicted for Now. Then you go into the Calloway Sisters books, so you have Kiss the Sky and Hot House Flower. Then you've got Thrive, Addicted After All, and then you're going back into Calloway and you got Fuel the Fire, Long Way Down, and Some Kind of Perfect, which is sort of an epilogue book, which was just, it was beautiful. It was so cute. If you want a series where you can sort of just fall into, and it's like a nice, easy read. I definitely recommend it. Not easy in terms of story and plot. I meant more easy in like the writing style. I didn't have to think too hard while reading it, which sort of like an end of the day sort of book. This is probably my favourite book of the year, and it's House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J Maas. Obviously if you haven't read I don't think I'm going to go back that into spoilers, but if you haven't read any of the Sarah J Maas's books, definitely mute this part until I put like a picture of the cover. Until that picture goes, keep me mute, because I will sort of delve into a little bit. There is so much to say about this book. Honestly, this was probably, like, while it was my most favourite read, it was honestly the most stressful book in the world, just because there were so many characters to deal with, and also all of them were just doing their own little thing, and none of them were really like talking to each other, or they were trying to keep things secret, but they were telling everyone, and it was just so stressful, especially the ending and all the plot twists and turns. I thought the first book was stressful. The first book literally had me ripping hair out because I was so stressed, but the second book really took the cake for that. But from that ending, I don't want to give spoilers, but no, I'm not going to talk about the spoilers. But from that ending, I'm so excited to see where the rest of the series goes. I think Crescent City has the power to be one of Sarah J Maas's greatest series. I think it's going to overtake Throne of Glass. I think that's where it's going. One thing Sarah J Maas does really well is when she writes in third person, because it allows for so many other points of views for characters that we normally wouldn't hear from. I specifically loved Ethan's point of view. I thought he was such a interesting character, and such an interesting character to hear from because of his history with Bryce, and his relationship with Connor. I just absolutely loved his POV. Yeah, by far my favourite in the book. This was honestly, yeah, because I don't want to talk about spoilers, I can't really give too much away, but I just thought, it's amazing how she was building up to that, and you could see it from the first book, and I just felt so stupid finishing the book and being like, how did I not see that coming? Now that I went to reread it, I was like, oh my gosh, she's literally like spelled it out for us. But I do recommend it. Yeah, I do recommend reading. If you're in doubt about Crescent City, I definitely recommend reading it. Particularly the first book was really fun. I love the first book. It was such a fun read, as stressful as it was. Okay, so the next book is Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. This is probably one of my favourite contemporary romance books ever. I fucking love this book. Sorry, I swear. I freaking love this book so much. If you like grumpy sunshine tropes, this book is the one for you. It was such a fun read. I really liked it. Basically this book follows Naomi, who's just I'm reading notes, who's just run away from her wedding because her twin sister says she needed help. It turns out her twin sister abandoned her daughter, so now Naomi has to take care of the daughter, and along the way shenanigan ensues. She meets a very grumpy character, and lo and behold, they fall in love. If you love romance books and you haven't already read this book, I sincerely recommend it. I love Lucy Score's book. I think she's an amazing author. This book sort of reads like an early 2000s rom-com. It was such like an easygoing read, which is something I really prefer, especially when you're in uni and you've been reading all these readings and you just want something easy to read, something not mind-numbing, but something just like you don't have to think, you don't have to stress about. I recommend this book. This next book, I was a bit late to the party too. I only read it this year, but it was the first book I read this year, and that is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Yeah, like I said, this was the first book I ever read this year, and it already was like in my top 10. I already knew it was going to be one of my favourite books this year. I'm still thinking about this book. So, Daisy Jones follows the lives of this band and their sort of rise and fall of fame. It's set, I believe it's set in the 70s. It was such like an extremely refreshing and easy, I keep saying it's an easy read, but it was such an easy read. And that's mainly because of the format of the book. It's sort of written as a music documentary. It's sort of a music documentary's transcript. So actually, in saying that, it's more of an interview. It's like an interview style, which I found a very interesting way to do this book, and it was never mentioned. A lot of people recommended this book to me, but it was never mentioned that it was written the way that it was, and I think that's such a talking point of the book, and that I think that's what made it feel like such a real, like I was along for the ride. Like I came out of that book thinking, not thinking, obviously I knew it was fiction, but like I was like, wow, it read like a non-fiction book. And I think because it read like a non-fiction book, the characters of like mainly Daisy, Billy, and Camilla, they felt really real, and just like their emotions just felt really raw as well. Also, like if you like Fleetwood Mac, you're gonna love this book. Huge Fleetwood Mac vibes. Obviously, I'm guessing Taylor Jenkins Reid was inspired by Fleetwood Mac, and sort of that whole 70s genre. It's just thinking about it is making me so excited for the TV show. I hope they do it justice. I'm sure they will. The casting looks amazing, but definitely read it before the show comes out. I think the show, when does the show come out? Oh, I'm not too sure, but I know it's soon. I know it's somewhere, maybe it's February. Another thing, I think this book is such a good recommendation for people who either want to get into reading or want to get back into reading. Because it was such like it read like a non-fiction book, I think people might prefer that. Yeah, I've found myself recommending it to people who want to read but don't really enjoy reading. Yeah, so if you have someone that says they want a book recommendation, give them that book. So this next book is called The Wolf and the Woodsman by Reid. I love standalone fantasy books, and this book just reminded me of why I love standalone fantasy books so much. It did not disappoint, this book. I'm so glad it was recommended to me. While I don't think the romance was that significant of a plot line, it still served us with a nice grueling enemies to lovers arc, which I love. It is one of my favorite tropes. If you love the book Thorn or The Bear and the Nightingale, I'm telling you now, you will love this book. It's sort of inspired by Hungarian and Jewish mythology, which I think is such a interesting and unique setting for a fantasy book. I know a lot of people right now are getting sick of the classic like medieval England fantasy setting, so it's really refreshing when we see something new, which is why I think all my favorite standalone fantasies have often been a book based on like either Slavic mythology or even like Middle Eastern mythology as well. I find those way more interesting than sort of medieval, because it's been done before. And yeah, that's why I think The Wolf and the Woodsman is fantastic. Despite being a fantasy book, it reads like a fairy tale. So this book, I'm gonna butcher this name, but the main character, Evike, she's the main character. I believe she's a pagan woman. And her entire village are all women. No, not all women. There's some men, but they're irrelevant, as they should be. They're all of the women have powers, but Evike is the only one that doesn't have powers. But in some sort of, and every sort of year or two, one of the magic girls actually gets sacrificed to the Woodsman, who gets taken to the king. And in some sort of switch, Evike becomes the one that is sacrificed, even though she has no powers. So she is going off with the Woodsman, and eventually they all die, except for one, who is the captain, who has one eye. And they sort of go their journey to the city, sort of I don't want to give too much away about the actual conflict in the book, but a lot of tension between Evike and the Woodsman. Yeah. It's a lot, I will say, it is a lot more than the romance. A lot of people have been recommending and pitching this book as a romance. I think the book deals with so much more subject matter, where the romance is sort of in the background. Like, don't go into it thinking it's going to be like a romance book. That's all I want to say on that. I will say this was a debut book from Ava Reid, and I'm so excited to read more from her. I've just started reading Juniper and Thorn. I think I like The Wolf and the Woodsman better so far, but I'm so excited to see more from this author. I can't recommend this book enough. This next book, I wasn't actually going to put this on this list, but looking back on it, I really did enjoy this book. And that book is The Savage and the Swan by Ella Fields. It's also enemies to lovers. This book is a sort of a mix of different, it's a standalone fantasy, but I believe there are more coming set in the world, but they're different. Anyway, back to what I was saying. This book is sort of like a mix of a bunch of different fairy tales. So I believe it's like the Swan Princess, obviously it's in the name. Bit of Hades and Persephone vibes, Little Red Riding Hood, even a bit of Rumpelstiltskin, which was funny. So yes, it is another standalone fantasy. But I believe, yeah, there's more books in this world. I believe there's another one. I think they're not connected, but they're set in the same world. I haven't read the new one yet, but I am excited to read it. The covers of these books look amazing. Yeah, I really like this book. It's sort of when I go into fantasy books, I love like a low commitment. I love easy world building ones where I don't have to think as much about like who goes where, like what place is this. This was a really easy, again, low commitment fantasy read. Really just fills the spot. I absolutely loved the romance in it. I thought it was, really cute. That's all I really have to say on it. I don't love it as much as the other books I mentioned, but it was still like a book that I came out of it really enjoying. I've read a lot of crap books this year. And these were the standout ones. I read a lot of disappointing books I was disappointed by. These, honestly, in comparison to like my favorite books ever, these books just don't compare. My favorite books ever are like top tier, in my opinion. But yeah, I didn't really have a standout read this year. These were just books that I enjoyed more than others. I'm hoping this year coming, 2023, is a better reading year for me. I've already got some really good books on my TBR that I'm excited to read. Like I said before, this is my first YouTube video. I'm not really comfortable speaking to a camera yet. I will get better. Please bear with me. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you have shared some of the same opinions, or if you haven't read any of them, I hope you pick some of them up. I do think they're worth it. Especially like Things We Never Got Over. I love that book so much. I'll definitely also give me some video recommendations as well. I have a few planned out. I'm probably not going to have a clear posting schedule just yet because I'm pretty sure I'm working every day in January, and I don't really want to spend my day off staying inside filming videos. So I'll probably post once a week in February, but now in January it might be a bit rocky. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe for more. Thank you.